Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the United Star. Today is the first episode of a series we like to call Moneyball. It's about all the finances that go around in football, and some of these are astronomical numbers and how we've gotten here. Today's episode covers the distribution of funds in the Premier League and who gets what and where do they earn it from. Today, we try to highlight why it's not only important to finish in the Champions League spots or as high as you can finish in the table for the sake of the fans, but also for the sake of your club's finances. We have Shivan here with us, who's almost an expert at these things. So, Shivan, take it away. Why don't you tell us what are the three main sources that Premier League clubs earn their money from?
Okay, so Premier League clubs, all football clubs actually have three main sources of revenue. That's matchday revenue, broadcast revenue, and commercial revenue. Now, let's start with matchday revenue. It's obviously the revenue that you get from selling tickets to your supporters. Obviously, right now, that revenue is non-existent because of the coronavirus pandemic. But in normal circumstances, it's the revenue you get from selling season tickets. So the bigger the stadium, obviously, the more money you get. So teams like United earned 111 million pounds in the 2018-19 season from matchday revenue. Other teams like Arsenal on 96, Liverpool on 84, Tottenham on 82, Chelsea 67, and City 55. So obviously, the smaller the stadium, the less revenue you get. That's why teams are looking to shift stadiums, and like how Arsenal shifted to Emirates in 2006. Tottenham have shifted to the new stadium now. Liverpool built a new stand to get more revenue. So this is one of the main sources of revenues. The other main source is commercial revenue. That's what from all your sponsorships, from all your commercial deals. And again, out here, United are the king of sponsorships. They have over 30 partners worldwide. They earned 275 million pounds yearly in 2018-19 from commercial revenue. That's from all their sponsorships, like with Adidas, they released 75 million. With Chevrolet, they released 64 million pounds. So that's the main commercial revenue you get. Like comparatively, other teams have a lower commercial revenue. So Liverpool have 188, City have 227, Tottenham have 135, etc. So this is all your sponsorship money. And lastly, which is the most important source of revenue, which is what we'll be going into detail right now, it's the broadcast revenue. So broadcast revenue is the money that you get from all the TV rights that are being sold. And in terms of broadcast revenue, the Premier League is the biggest money churn in terms of broadcast revenue because it's the most popular league in the world. So in 2018-19, Liverpool earned the most broadcast revenue by earning 261 million pounds. We'll go into detail why later in this video, why they earned so much. But comparatively, City earned 253, United 241, and so on.
Okay, that makes sense. Now that you've, the only thing I'd like to add here is that some of these contracts, especially United's contract, for example, is dependent on the Champions League with Adidas. So if they don't finish in the top four for 2 consecutive seasons, they actually lose some of the money and it's docked off the contract. So it's very interesting as to how these things are tied with those. But let's get more into broadcasting, as you said. What are the sort of schemes that the Premier League has in place in terms of profit sharing from broadcast deals?
Okay, so the Premier League is actually the most equitable league in terms of broadcast sharing. So in terms of the split that goes between all the 20 teams, so out of the domestic rights and the overseas rights, 50% of that goes to each and every team. So for 2019-20, each team got 31.8 million from domestic rights and 43.2 million from overseas rights. That's half of the entire pot, and each team gets that equally. That's not there in any other league in the world. Then after that, the other 50% is based on your performance. So if a team finishes higher in the league, they get more money. So in 2019-20, each league position is approximately worth 3.2 million. So the 20th place club Norwich earned 3.2 million from the league position, whereas Liverpool earned 31 million from that 31 around 31 million from their league position. So that's how the merit payments works. And the next thing is how many times each team is shown on TV. So obviously Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Arsenal are shown on TV a lot more than the likes of Norwich, Sheffield, or like the bottom place clubs. So the more time you're shown on TV, the more money you get. So it's worth around £2 million per time you're shown on TV. So obviously the bigger clubs have that advantage. So that's basically how the entire TV pool is split. And so like the team Liverpool finished first this year, and they got around £163 million in TV rights for 2019-20 comparatively to Norwich, who finished last and they earned 94 million pounds. So that's the split that we're seeing in terms of the Premier League TV deal.
Absolutely. So, but when you say Liverpool got about 30 to 35 million pounds more than Norwich, it's not that much of a substantial figure. I think the main thing that we also should be explaining here is what TV deals come from the Champions League and why it is so important to finish in that top four rather than in that fifth, sixth. For how much ever Arsenal fans were berating Arsene Wenger, for the owners, it was a clear directive to finish in that fourth spot and get that Champions League money coming in. So how much more lucrative is the Champions League than the Europa League or no European football at all?
Yeah, so the Premier League deal is great, but actually the biggest money we get is the Champions League, and that's like a huge boost to a team's finances. That's why every team wants to finish in the top four. So if you look at the 2018-19 season, in terms of Champions League TV money, Liverpool earned 100 million pounds from the Champions League TV rights alone because they reached the final. So obviously, the further you reach in that competition, the more money you get. Tottenham got 90 million pounds from the TV rights because they reached the final. City and United reached the quarterfinals in 2018-19, and they got around 82 million pounds from the TV rights. So in the Champions League, how it works is in the group stage, for every win, you get 2.7 million pounds. Then if you reach the round of 16, you get 9.5. If you reach the quarterfinals, you get 10. If you reach the semifinals, you get 12. The final, you get 15. And if you win the entire thing, you get 19 million above the appearance fee. So basically, if you reach the quarterfinals, approximately each team in the Premier League gets 18 million additional pounds of revenue. So that's huge. Comparatively, if you look at the Europa League, Arsenal and Chelsea reached the finals, and they still only got 35 million pounds in terms of broadcast rights. That's almost less than half of what you get in the Champions League. So it's a huge injection of cash. It's basically 80, 90 million pounds of revenue compared to 30 million pounds of revenue from the Europa League if you go that far. So the Champions League is huge.
Absolutely, it would make sense as well because it's broadcasted across the world more, and people obviously turn up to watch it more. And the prize money involved itself in the Champions League is also much higher than the Europa League. But having said that, what is also important to note is that the top clubs earn a lot more than the sort of mid-table or lower-table clubs in the Premier League. And that disparity generally comes from endorsements and ticket sales. But what is particularly interesting is the sort of parachute payments that are made to relegation teams. So how do those work and how are they structured?
Okay, so we all know that teams in the Premier League avoid relegation at all costs. That's why you see Watford kept sacking managers. Most teams kept sacking managers because they just want to stay in the Premier League to earn that revenue. So in the Premier League, even the team that finishes 17th, so they don't get relegated, will earn around 110 million pounds of broadcast rights. Comparatively, if you go to the Championship, which is one tier below, the average revenue paid for the broadcasting rights is only 8 million. So talking a 90 million pounds difference in revenue. So obviously, for a team that goes down from Premier League to the Championship, they have a sudden revenue loss, and they can't mitigate that because they have a really high wage bill. They have contracts which they've already paid for. So there's something called parachute payments, which tries to cushion the fall of these relegated clubs, which the Premier League and EFL have introduced for many years now. So basically, you get around 40 million pounds in your first year of being relegated. So this year, Norwich, Bournemouth, and which is the 13 that were relegated?
Watford.
Norwich, Bournemouth, and Watford got relegated. So they'll earn around 40 million pounds next year, and then in the year after that, they'll earn around 30. So it goes up to 80 to 90 million pounds of parachute payments over the 3 years of you being relegated. So that really helps cushion the fall of relegated clubs because otherwise they'll go in financial turmoil. So it shows how important staying in the Premier League is just for that TV rights money. So you get like 110 million pounds of revenue, which basically covers your entire cost for the year. So that's why it's so important to stay in the Premier League. And if you're in the Championship, it's almost 1/10 that.
Right. That makes sense. But having said that, having shown the astronomical revenue these big six teams pull in, it's almost surprising that apart from United and Tottenham Hotspur, Tottenham of course would make sense, that these are the only two teams that are actually providing profits. So what is the sort of rationale behind that? That the costs are so high that teams like Chelsea are in fact posting losses of over 100 million pounds this season, the last season itself. So that is quite shocking that comes across when that is there.
So the reason all these teams have like they're earning so much revenue and they're still posting losses is because of their costs are so high. So that's mainly to do with the wage bill. Chelsea have one of the highest wage to revenue ratios. So that means they are operating on a really high. In the 2018-19 season, they were operating on a Champions League budget while being in the Europa League. So they were giving wages of £300,000 to Hazard and Kut and like Jorginho and Kante and all that when they weren't earning that much money in that year. So that's why teams still have still end up getting losses even though that they getting such high revenue. The reason Tottenham and United posted profits is because Tottenham firstly keep a really tight wage budget. Daniel Levy doesn't like to spend so much, and in the transfer market they didn't spend for 2 seasons. That's why two transfer windows. That's why they managed to post some profits. And Manchester United are the biggest club in the world commercially, and that's why they have so many commercial deals which helps them pull in the money. That's why they end up keeping profits compared to other teams.
Having said that, it's also interesting that Daniel Levy takes the most money as a director from the club in £7 million, and Ed Woodward is the second in there with £3.2 million. So maybe there is some correlation there in terms of financial management. But finally, I also want to touch up on the fact that in the sort of Deloitte's Football League that they put out every year, Barcelona and Real Madrid are 1 and 2. And rightly so, because Barcelona, Real Madrid are always in the Champions League. They're very highly there, and in the La Liga as well. Whereas Manchester United, to be fair, have not been competing for those top titles for quite some while. Yet they're third. Manchester City are sixth. Liverpool are seventh. Spurs is eighth. Chelsea is ninth, and Arsenal are 11th. So some of these teams are above the likes of Bayern Munich, PSG, Juventus, Atletico, Dortmund, who are more often competing for the bigger titles. So clearly the Premier League is raking in more money than some of the other leagues are in the world, even for the top teams. And I think this has got to do with the sort of global reach in broadcasting and the global reach in branding, like the number of brands they're associated with. So I think that is also an interesting point to consider as to how sort of mighty the Premier League teams are, maybe not on the pitch in Europe, but definitely in terms of money. And that is why so many sort of people are interested in buying a football club, because if run well, there is some real money that is actually available there. Is there anything, Shivan, you want to add to what to the finances that we've spoken about today?
No, I just want to add that, yeah, you're right. So I want to say like PSG earn around £130 million from broadcasting rights, and comparatively teams like Everton, West Ham, and even Wolves earn the same amount from the Premier League. So being a mid-table club in the Premier League is actually better than being a top club in other leagues in Europe. And I just want to say in terms of commercial revenue, no one beats Bayern, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. They are probably the best team in terms of worldwide reach, but teams like the Premier League clubs are now getting up there. So that's why you see Premier League expanding to Asia, to India, like to China, to USA, because those are the markets where they can earn money. So that's why you see like now the Premier League is associated with Ranveer Singh in India. They're getting more brand ambassadors and all that. That's what they're trying to do, to build a market here, and eventually they'll try to bring games here so that Indians like us can buy shirts, can be a big fan followers, which will help their revenue going and help the TV rights also increase. That's the biggest thing that the Premier League is trying to do right now.
Absolutely. I think, Shivan, you've covered that brilliantly. And it's obvious, guys, if you all think about it, if there is so much money kicking in, of course, there are going to be big budget transfers and big budget signings from all these clubs that we've mentioned, and even from some of the lower clubs. And that is why our next episode is going to focus on exactly that, the transfer market and the financial fair play, or the non-existent of it, or existence of it almost. So thanks, Shivan, for enlightening us with what actually goes on in the Premier League and how clubs earn their money. And we'll be back with another episode of Moneyball. So please stay tuned to the channel and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.